What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to go over a whole bunch of decks for the new format to help you guys better get ready for it. And for once, when I say we, it's more than just me. I have a very special guest that I'm happy to introduce if you want to take it away and let them know who you are.
Hey guys, it's Big Grizz here from Big Grizzly Gaming. And I thought I'd hop in here and offer my 2 cents too. We're really excited about the new set coming out, set 5. Hard to believe it's been over a year now.
Yeah,
And
flew
let's talk
by.
about some decks.
So I guess first off, did I have Ruby Amethyst as the first one for you? It kind of like shuffled things away on me.
Yeah, I got Ruby Amethyst
Okay,
here.
I'm gonna go off my paper, not off the images on the screen, because it definitely changed it up on me when I wasn't looking. So I guess my thoughts is, until something proves this deck isn't the top of the top, I think we have to leave it there. They got some nice new tools, Elsa being a really good one. I don't know if you had other cards marked down that you think are going to find their way into the deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, I think we're going to see a lot of stuff with Cogsworth as well. Just being able to give stuff rush later on. Now everything becomes a Maui. I think that you might see that in people's decks that prefer to go the control style with the attacking.
Right, it's
Um,
weird to play a one
Elsa,
drop
yeah,
not for turn one, though. It's like, oh, he's my turn 6 one drop.
yeah, and it's just something a little bit different, right? The library, I think, is a super good card. Probably, I think the library, honestly, is the best card that Amethyst got. Just being another location, dropping it on 3. You're going to be able to move stuff there too.
And the 8
And if
willpower.
you, yeah, yeah, in a deck that has Be Prepared, it's
Yeah, that's
pretty easy to
nuts.
keep that around for a
I
turn or
actually
two.
had a
And
sneaky
I mean, I,
card.
I don't know about you when you played Ruby Amethyst, but I used to love just dropping Be Prepared and then with 8 ink on the next turn, dropping 2
Yeah,
castles.
just castle
So,
control. I actually was
yeah,
testing out Hypnotic Strength, the 2-cost inkable, because it's you just draw a card essentially, but you give something +2 for like just that surprise factor, having your weaker characters be able to take out bigger threats. I don't know if it'll stick around, but I think it's worth testing a bit more if you're looking to explore the deck out.
yeah, I think so. And then, you got that new item that each player draws a card as well.
Yeah, the
So that's
Amethyst
just more card
Chromacon
draw.
or
I don't know if we're gonna see that in this deck. The Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. What do you think about that card in this?
um
Like gaining the last couple lore with Goat later on is cool, but
right.
how
I
about
think
another tool when you're?
my only thing with this is there's so many good Ruby uninkable cards. Like, I don't know, it's hard for me to add uninkables into the deck when you got Rabbit, Medusa, all them, but the card's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see a couple different renditions of this deck come around. People
Or
just going at it from a different angle.
or even the we didn't really see it set 4, but set 2 and 3, the Ruby Amethyst, but the aggro version, not the more controlled version. Maybe it'll make a big debut there too.
Yeah, I could see that as well.
But
And yeah, the Archimedes as well, having that shift 3 5 drop. So I don't know if we're gonna see that at all. I know it's got a super pretty enchanted version of it, so
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised to see some people try it.
it might be one of my favorite enchanteds of the set, but I guess I started Ruby Amethyst. Do you want to start off the purple steel deck and see what your main thoughts are?
Yeah, so I think and it's you're gonna hear it from me all day. I think whenever we talk about steel, is Referee Pete. I
Yep.
think that is by far the best card this set got. It's a game changer. It's going to make so many more decks viable. It's going to make so many more decks good against Ruby Amethyst, against Ruby anything basically. Like you can just shut down. Like, you could go the bounce route, which is what the steel is probably going to do. You're going to have all your snakes in there. It's just a 3-drop body.
Right. Yeah, I feel like
And
it's
I
like
think that's really what, yeah, I think that's what Amethyst Steel really worried about was you would try and get your, or you would try and just pound out that game as fast as possible. And if your opponent hit be prepared, then
Then it's
you're kind of
tough,
done.
right? Yeah. It feels kind of like the how Ursula Deceiver just became a standard. Like if you're playing Emerald, you're playing her. If you're playing Steel, you're playing
Mhm.
Pete. They just feel like they're gonna go hand in hand. Um, so I guess where do you have that deck ranked?
So I think that deck was really close to being S tier last set. You definitely saw people take it very far in challenges. I think it is going to be up there. I think with one of the other decks sliding out of that S tier slot this set, which we'll talk about later, I think that this is definitely going to be a viable option, and I might even try it this time myself.
Yeah,
So it's
Amethyst
S tier
steals.
for me.
I was gonna say Amethyst steals a deck that like I played super hard in set 3 and then went to more Amethyst Emerald usually last set, until we ended up getting our Ursula with Sapphire Emerald of all things. Um, I have it as A tier, but I think it's right on that cusp, like you were saying. Like I could see it.
Yeah,
I could see it
it,
moving up definitely. I guess,
like
on
bottom of S or top of A, I
yeah,
think.
like right in that like fourth to sixth best deck probably.
Yeah,
Definitely a threat you have to be ready for though. Like bouncing Pete's gonna be all over the place. I think.
and they've got that Simba as well, I believe, that does the location removal,
Yep.
right? So,
Yeah, the
um,
six
uh,
drop. Yeah, it's I
so that's just another thing we talked about earlier, having the effect on a body.
right.
That's just another body as well.
Yeah, it's like Rise of the Titans, except you have a yeah, like you said, a big body to stick around. So the deck, everyone was
Yeah.
so happy to, I guess, get destroyed. We were just talking about Bucky a little bit ago. Where do you think that Emerald Steel discards ranks now, and how is it going to be played in this format, if at all?
So I really wanted to stick around because like I was telling you earlier, like I bought all the cards for it when they were pretty high, and that's what I took to set championships and was successful with. But yeah, with Bucky being gone, I think its identity is gonna have to change huge. Like there's gonna be no point in playing the Aladdin, the Donald Duck in there anymore. Like yeah, it has lots of good cards in it, like the Diablos, the Beasts. I would love to see that deck. I don't think it's gonna be the same kind of discard. I think it's gonna be if it makes it anywhere, it's gonna be tactical, using those Ursulas like you were talking about there to get stuff to stick around, like the Diablos and everything for the card advantage. And it might have to go more aggro style with just once in a while picking apart those. Prince John's Mirror is obviously the best card Emerald got, I think.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah, I don't think that's going to be the discard deck this set.
yeah, I think the sleepy card or sleeper card that Emerald got is the hypnotic deduction, like drawing 3, because then you just put like 2 cards that you need, just you don't need them right now back to the top, so it feels like pretty good advantage. Unfortunately, like you know what you're drawing the next 2 turns, so you're kind of tutoring for the future, but I think it's gonna be interesting how that card plays out in if it finds a way to try to make this deck more consistent. Now that you don't have Bucky, so you need to hit more specific play lines if you're gonna try to discard out your opponent's hand.
Yeah, I really don't think it's going to be able to discard. Like it's going to play the Prince John stuff, I'm sure. Kind of what we saw back in set 3, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as good as the way Bucky was. So, like, let's see where I got mine. I made a list here.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah, I
thing.
actually dropped it all the way to B tier
Okay,
myself.
that was actually what I was thinking too. I feel like the thing with Bucky is you have 20 plus Floodborn, so it's like every turn you're hitting their hand. Where this now you need to
Yeah,
hit your Sudden Chill, your Lucifer, your Bibbity to bounce your like you have to hit more
yeah.
specific cards. It's not so just literally draw a third of your deck and you're going after their hand.
It's gonna have to take a more tactical identity for sure. It's not just gonna be that curve out Diablo, curve out Bucky, curve out Floodborn. Like,
Right.
yeah, it's. I don't like I said. I think B tier is. I'm hoping I'm wrong because I'd love to play a version of that deck that was good, but I don't. From what I can see right now, I don't see any way to make it better than B tier.
Right. The next deck's actually one when we had Pixelborn, rest in peace. Um, there was a player who was actually ranked number one for a while, and he showed up to our Stitch Set championships. So that was pretty cool. His name was Ben with, oh shoot, I know his channel. I just can't even think of it right now. He's gonna criticize me if he sees this. But that's Blurple, and I think they got one of the funnest
Yeah.
interactions in the game with, like, Merlin. You could search any card, and it just works with your goat and rabbit so good. Like,
Yeah,
Yep.
I think
But did
I
you
think
know
that's
we also
gonna
print these?
probably be the only
And
deck
those.
that Merlin's
And
gonna
that.
work in.
And
I know
definitely
there is
this.
ones in
That's
blue that
engraved where we print
really
with
just they're
lasers
just
and
4 drops
Vistaprint.
that don't do a whole lot as support or whatever. But yeah, I think with all the Merlin and the Min package, which you're probably playing anyway, having the ability to tutor what you need. I don't. Yeah, I guess like you're not going to go the item route probably in that because you don't have enough slots. So I'm not really sure how that deck is going to consistently finish.
right,
Um,
like
it's not going to have a board wipe, but we do see the new Elsa and the new Anna, right? Being able to shift that Anna. Maybe there's a line there where you can do Anna and Genie since you're ramping so hard.
I was gonna say that
And
was a
just
fun thing I was kind of working towards. It's just so many high cost uninkable cards, but yeah, definitely really a fun. I get well, not fun for your opponent, but you know.
No, I think people are going to be experimenting with that deck for sure, and it might take just a little bit longer than the other decks to kind of come into its own. But like right now, from what I can see, just kind of makeshifting a couple decks on Dreamborn there. I have it in B tier, but I think with the right build, the right pilot, it could go up to A tier.
Sure.
Kind
Yeah,
of right on.
I would agree with that. Like, I think it's almost like Sapphire Steel, where it's one of those decks where it's really hard to play it really well, but like a really good player can push the deck really far. Because I feel like that was
Yeah.
Sapphire Steel. Like, good players with Sapphire Steel, that deck's scary even into its bad matchups.
I think Sapphire Steel is a really good deck. I just think it has no room for error.
Right.
You have to make the right choice every time, or you get punished with it.
Well, I
You
guess
just- you can't pull and be prepared off the top, so you have to
right.
do the right thing.
I guess since we're already talking about it, should we just keep going with Sapphire Steel then?
So that's the deck I'm excited the most about. Me and you were talking. I've already done a video on my channel about it, about where I'm going to start with that deck. I think that is going to win a challenge event. I think it's going to win a lot of set championships. I feel like that might be one of the strongest decks, and that's might be a hot take for some people, but really, if I look at that deck, it struggled a little bit with aggro, but we've got some answers there. We've got like the TPO, we've got the effects on bodies being able to ink that turn sooner with the extra ink. We've got the card draw with Chicha. We've got Pete, which is going to stop our huge board with Cogsworth and Tinkerbells and all that stuff. Be prepared.
Right.
I was playing a couple Rise of the Titans. We've got the Kuzco now that takes the spot of that. And
That's
is a
what I was
double
gonna say.
quester.
Like, being able to get rid of those
Yeah.
castles just right away, really nice.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be going after Mufasas. Like I'm gonna want a couple of them for sure for my deck. That's the coolest card I think visually, stunning. That's my favorite enchanted I've seen so far as well. So I think that deck's S tier. Like I think that deck is gonna be
Yeah,
right in the top for sure.
I definitely agree with that. Like, I think that's the deck that can use Mufasa the best too, just because of whole new world. Like, you can reset your ink and reset your hand essentially. Like, that's scary. And they're
Oh, and I
ramping,
love
so it's not
wheeling.
it's not a turn 9 play. It's turn 6 sometimes sooner. Like, it's scary.
Yeah. It's gonna be kind of crazy, and the fact that you can if you have your items out, you can ink after it resets the board, and even get a Pete out on the same turn with the right board state. So that's gonna be a sneaky good card, and I don't even think the effect is bad because I think about if you bounce 2 cards from your inkwell back to your hand, but what are you really inking?
Right.
You're inking your Tamatoas, you're inking your Tinkerbells, you're inking your big blockbuster cards that you can't play till later.
Right.
And
Yeah,
those
a
are the
lot of
ones you're
time,
going to
yeah.
have a chance of getting back. And when you play Mufasa, now you're at that stage where you want those cards back.
Right. Yeah, it's like, man, I really don't want to ink this card, but I have to do it because I have to be able to play the game to get to turn 8 in the first place. So if you can't get to turn 8, what good is a Tamatoa going to be? So like you
Yeah,
said, you have to ink it, and now there's a chance you get it back.
yeah. So Sapphire Steel S tier for me for sure all day long.
Yeah, I
And then
definitely agree.
you guys can throw eggs at me if I'm wrong, but I think it's there.
So how about a more fun take, if you will? Are brooms going to be competitive enough this format?
I don't think so. There was no new brooms, unless I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure there was 0 brooms added this set,
Yeah, I don't think they
and
got any direct, and I guess I'll let you finish your
I
thoughts
don't.
on it before I.
Yeah, I don't even really know where my thought is on brooms. Like we've got some guys that play that locally as kind of a fun deck, and I think that's kind of where it belongs. It's a fun deck. If you're and I think it's really cool. I think the Mickeys are cool and everything, but I don't think even if you threw Pete's in that deck, I still think it's too slow. I don't think it's competitive, but it is fun, and I like to see these fun decks.
Yeah, I guess.
So that's I guess C tier is pretty much what I'm saying on that.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on. Like my main thoughts, I guess, are like Steel as a whole. I feel like didn't get the best support. I mean, might be the best card in the set, but outside of Pete, like there's some niche
Yeah,
cards. But overall, I don't know like how many staple cards they got this format. And out of Amethyst, I think this might be the deck that can abuse We Know the Way the best, just because you shuffle a Broom back out of your deck, and there's a pretty good chance you hit a Broom and play it for free. Not that that's crazy value, though. It's just this and 99
but
Puppies
fun
are
to do
probably the
though,
best.
right?
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a deck I didn't even have on my list is puppies.
well, Puppies
But
are. Any deck we don't mention is probably in that C or D tier. If we miss something, I
yeah,
mean, let us know
100.
down below, but not likely
Yeah,
we're gonna miss an A or an S tier, maybe a B tier, but it's probably C or D if we miss a deck and you're wondering where it stands.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So C tier for me for sure for brooms.
what about a deck that just kind of I didn't see it coming whatsoever, and I know it's getting a lot of hype, but what about dwarves? They just got a huge influx of support, and I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, yeah, and I really don't even know how that fits in with the lore, kind of where they're going either. It kind of just seemed like a random ad. I don't know a lot about the dwarves. I know some people are really theory crafting that quite a bit. I don't. I haven't seen anything spectacular on them to see that they'll be really good. But so for me, it's still a C tier deck. But it would be neat to see if that did something kind of crazy.
Right. I do agree with
And
it, but it
I
feels like I don't know if you remember set 3 like with the Beast OTK loop and like with Jafar's Whole New World, like these two decks were supposed to just be like the two best decks. Like if you weren't playing one of them, you weren't going to win it all, and they both probably fell to like B borderline C tier for most of their existence. Like
yeah,
they had little moments where they shine, but it just seems like every set we have a deck that everyone talks about and says hypes it up so much, and then it just falls flat, and we go play Ruby Amethyst instead.
so the location I think is probably the most interesting ad for that, and I feel like that location, the Seven Dwarfs one, they probably should have put that in the last set with the other dwarves. Um, that's probably the most interesting thing I see about it. And so for those of you that don't know, it's a 2-cost inkable, 2 to move there, 6 willpower, gives you a lore at the beginning of your turn. It says during your turn, the first time you move a character here, you can deal 1 damage to chosen character. That part doesn't matter because the second part says if the moved character is a knight, deal 2 damage instead. So yeah, I mean it's dealing damage, and we see them keep adding cards that want to do things if you have damaged characters on the opponent's side. So
Yeah, and
one day maybe, but
and I guess my biggest thing it's we don't really have like big combo decks right now, and it feels like that's what the dwarves want to be like. They all piggyback off each other, and I just don't know if they're good enough to
mhm.
be the first true combo deck. Like we have play sequencing, but we don't really have like a true combo line deck for the most part.
Yeah, I think I think it's going to be you're going to see people doing it just for fun, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very inexpensive deck. I think they're all commons as far as I know, or uncommons.
Right.
Maybe not the Snow White. I think that's super rare, but
And
yeah, C tier for me for sure. Maybe even D tier, honestly, but I could be way out to lunch on that. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing there. The
and
the one the one character, I guess, the Doc. When you play this character, you may discard your hand to draw 2 cards.
yeah,
Like
he might see
super
some
good, I
play
guess. If you have,
here or there.
yeah, yeah, it is a 2-cost uninkable though. So, I mean, ideally myself, I don't know about you, but I don't like being down to no cards in hand.
Right.
So I try to prevent that from happening. And with Bucky being gone, I'm hoping that just doesn't happen.
I guess speaking on Bucky, the next deck is, like I said, the one that I got my Ursula and set championships with, but it's not playable whatsoever the way I did it because I did it with a ramp Bucky taking advantage of Cogsworth versus Steel and of Aurora versus Ruby decks for the targeting protection. But Emerald Sapphire, I just I feel like this color combination's always been one of the weaker ones, and I don't know if it has a true identity yet. Like that was kind of a fun idea I had that turned out to play better than I thought it would, but with Bucky going away, I don't know what this deck's identity is gonna be.
So I've got nothing to say about that deck at all. I've actually never seen it played at all in that color combination. So you're definitely the one that knows more about that than me. But I know I've thought about it, especially now having Diablo with card draw. But yeah, I've never experimented with it at all.
Yeah, he's
You want to
nice,
set
but I mean,
championship with that?
I didn't win, but I won my Ursula, so a top forward. Unfortunately, the aggro matchup was just horrible, and there was a lot of aggro there that day. That
Oh,
like,
really?
I just if I hit my kit play line, I could have a chance, but like if I don't hit that, I have no answers till turn 4, and versus hyper aggro, that's just a death sentence.
That's so funny how different places have different. So my meta where I'm at, and I played in 3 different set championships, is everybody was playing either Ruby Sapphire or Ruby Amethyst or Bucky.
Oh, see, and that's what I
That
was
was pretty
hoping
much it.
for, because I like tutored the deck for those 3 and tested against them like religiously, and well, I didn't play
Yeah.
them very much. So the one Ruby Amethyst I did, he actually got out 3 of the Flynn Riders and then dropped a goat on me, and I had no answers for that. It was just way too fast for me to
Oh,
even
wow.
try anything.
Yeah.
A deck that came on late in the format, I mean, it was hyped up a lot early on and then was one of those decks that disappeared. So maybe this will be how 7 Dwarves are, but it came on late. Zach Bivens even topped the, was it Fort Worth with it? The Amber Emerald Song deck. Personally, I think it's going to be, if you want to play discard, the best way to do that. I'll let you tell them about that playline you mentioned to me, because I didn't look into the deck that much, and when you said that, I was like, oh, that's just not fun. Like, that's kind of gross.
Yeah, I watched the same matchup there, and I saw that come into play, and I actually I did a video on my channel of me playing against a gentleman that went to Fort Worth that played that deck, and it was disgusting. Like it's actually like I never would have thought that Amber Emerald would have had those tools, but I think if you're playing discard, Bucky's out the window and Emerald Amber's in. So the combo that we're talking about here that I looked at and I'm really working on a deck around it is the new Prince John's Mirror, which when you play it on turn 3, makes your opponent at the end of their turn discard down to 3 cards. So your turn 4 play is you ink, you play You Have Forgotten Me to make them discard 2 more cards, and then you sing anything like Bare Necessities or Sudden Chill, probably with your 2-drop that you played, and you just empty their hand. So turn 4, no matter what kind of card draw they have, what they have going on, what they have on board, it doesn't matter. They're out of cards turn 4. No questions asked.
Right.
And I think if you're playing discard, like if you can hit that consistently, and there's a lot of tools in there to do it, you can play the aerial to look for songs too if you got to do it a turn later. Like there's going to be a lot of ways to get that combo off. I don't know what kind of finish it's going to have. Obviously, with the aerial in there, being able to sing 5-cost songs, having Diablo in there, able to shift on point, that gives you an 8 singer. So you're going to have Under the Sea plays to deal with aggro as early as turn 4 as well, to just wipe their board.
Yeah, it's
I think it's going to be a really good deck.
I guess my biggest thing is, one, it didn't play Bucky to begin with, but like you were saying, Prince
No,
John's Mirror, like with Bucky, you could try to play, like we saw, especially Ruby Amethyst would play less cards early on and then play the cards that replace themselves and just keep your hand size up. But with Prince John's Mirror, you can't do that. Like it cuts your hand down. You can't just keep them in your hand, and I think that's gonna
was
be.
it Bivens that played that in Fort Worth?
He did play it. Obviously, we didn't have the mirror yet, so I wonder if he's working on a updated list with that. But like you said, I
I bet
think,
he is, because I'm pretty sure I watched that game and I think he lost against Bucky.
yeah,
Like he dominated until he went up to Bucky, and just at the time Bucky was the better discard route. But
and
I
even
think
like
that's going to change.
if they try and put their board onto the board or their hand onto the board, like you have muses where you can sing songs, and all of a sudden you start bouncing their plays back to their hand, and then you just discard them out of their hand that way too. So it's not
Yeah, or
like
even
they're just
bouncing your
safe
own
on the board.
Ursula or bouncing your own Ariel to
Yeah,
look
just
for
to
more songs. Like,
yeah to keep.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
how many times on stream did he do that? Like he was bouncing
mhm.
his own aerial almost every time, just because then she just goes for a song, and use the
Yeah.
songs to dismantle your opponent's board. But I think for me, it's going to be an A tier. I want to see it, I guess, prove to be more. But kind of like Amethyst Steel, this is one of those decks that I think has the potential to move up. I just want to see it do it, or see those decks that we're familiar with kind of drop off.
So yeah, I'm thinking 100% at the top of A tier as well. I think that's probably going to be the easiest deck to prove itself S tier. Um, I'm going to try it for sure as well. I think it's a really good deck, and I liked playing discards. So yeah, A tier. I'm with you on A tier. It's definitely not dropping any lower than that.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one, Emerald Ruby. It's kind of always been like a evasive, quick, super aggro, but also a really budget deck. Tiffany, I forget her name. I saw her on the Forbidden Mountains Facebook page. She got her Ursula with a $20 version of this deck because it's just like all
Oh wow.
multi-questers, but they're all like evasive, or they banish the character that removes them. Like they're just a pain to deal with. Like it's like, yeah, they're a pain to deal with. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and I mean, and Ruby did get some really cool cards. The Robin Hood, I think, is going to be one of the neatest cards. I don't think this is the deck for it. The Big Gaston, I think, is really cool. It could go a lot of different ways. It could go like the Rush Evasive route. There's a lot of Rush support in the set now as well. Remember, we've got that legendary Hades from last set. They could start, taking out that 2-drop Gaston and switching it to the 9-drop Gaston. Like there's a lot of ways that deck could go. That sword released item as well. It
Yeah,
kind of does the same thing as Flynn Rider. Yeah, it's I don't play that particular style. I have a couple friends that do. So I'm trying to look at where I have it as a C tier deck right now. I think with the right pilot, if they went really aggressive with it, with the evasive, I think it maybe could go up to B tier. But I myself, for me, if I played it, it would be a C tier deck.
I definitely agree, and I don't think, like, just because we put a deck in C tier, especially like when set championships roll around, now that it's top 8, like any deck in C tier, absolutely, like on the right day, you hit your matchups, like wouldn't surprise. There's not many decks that would surprise me to potentially do that. 'Cause even if you're playing a fun deck, like if you just happen to hit good matchups and avoid that one auto loss matchup or two auto loss matchups, 'cause, what was it, the 10K, where Luca went undefeated with Ruby Amethyst, but he played 0 Bucky decks the entire event in Bucky format. Like, not saying he would have
Yeah,
lost a bunch of them, but I mean, it's slightly unfavorable, and to just the fact that he didn't play any like shows that you can dodge the most popular deck in the room.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I
Um,
mean, I'd love to see one of these C tier decks kind of come out of nowhere and win something somewhere. And the most recent challenge, we saw that really interesting item deck, right? With everybody, with that guy playing the Queen,
yeah,
and
that
just a
was
different Ruby Sapphire deck. And like, I've never even thought about something like that.
so. The next one's a little more generalized. I'll let you start because you have it a little bit higher than I do. I kind of have the Mufasa decks as a whole. Whether, I mean, I keep hearing more about Blue Fasa now again, with some of the powerful cards they're getting. Otherwise, there's the Steel Wheel Fasa, however you want to call it. But most popular is definitely Ruby Fasa, and probably the best version. How do you feel about that deck moving forward?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, that deck is really struggled to. There's people are pushing it really hard. Um, so yeah, I really want to make a Mufasa deck, and I think the only way to play it is not with blue. I think you have to do it with the Amber Ruby. Um, just some of the hits. The big thing that stood out to me was that revive card that came out, that action that lets you bring a 5-cost character from your discard pile back to play. A way to get that Mufasa back into play again. Just to keep trying for more hits on that.
Yeah, I
I think
definitely
that's going to be.
probably the deck that abuses Revive the best.
Yeah, so that's the big card that stands out. And now we have those big cards too, like that big Gaston I mentioned, that 9-drop and Ruby, being able to hit cards like that as well. And just for different matchups, right? The deck is going to have like that. There's that new Daisy Duck, right? That 1/4 that quests for 2. That I think you're going to play that card in this deck as well.
Yeah,
And
because the deck like
you're going to
truly lacked that one. I mean, they had Mulan maybe, but otherwise the deck really lacked
have.
that one drop spot, and I think Daisy helps that out quite a bit.
Yeah, and like being able to hit Daisy on the 1-drop, maybe instead of the Mulan, and then play the Beast on turn 2 that comes in with the 4 damage counters. Just
Definitely.
being able to have different options, like a toolbox style deck, I think that's what's going to push it in a different place.
So I
So
guess where do you rank it then?
yeah, I had to look back here and see. So I have it in A tier, but I think it's definitely towards the bottom of A tier.
Okay.
It's probably top of B tier, bottom of A tier.
Yeah, I think for me, Ruby Fasa's more top of B tier. I've always been really critical of the deck though personally, so I mean I have my own personal bias. I definitely think Ruby Fasa's the best way to play it though. Steel works,
Yeah.
but I'm not sold on blue. Someone's gonna have to convince me on that one.
Yeah, I don't think blue's the way to go. I think Amber Ruby's definitely been the most successful way it's been played. I think that's going to be the way it continues forward for sure.
The next one though, I'm really not gonna be surprised if this ends up being one of the best decks of the format. For me, it's definitely S tier, and that's Steel Song. Like it's another deck that Daisy Duck might see some play in, but Prince Naveen being able to just like come into play on 4 and sing a whole new world for free, and then if you have your aerial still on board, like I think Steel Song's in a really good spot this format.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's S tier. I don't think there's any question about it. And it's going to be for the same reasons we've talked about the other decks that got upgrades. Having Pete in here, remember Pete shuts off your opponent's songs, not your songs. So when you start wheeling and you start doing your thing and singing your songs and getting your board wide, you're going to have a way to protect your board from the Be Prepareds and from the, all of the different cards out there that, Be King Undisputed. I mean, obviously it's not going to stop the Medusas, but Daisy Duck is another one that I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, if I'm playing that in Amber Steel Songs, that's a 1-drop. I'm definitely going to play it. It's a 1/4. We can put 3 damage counters on that and draw 3 cards with a Rapunzel off a 1-drop. And I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think there's anything like that in the game.
Well,
Till
and I
now.
think it answers a really big issue because the deck, I think it's no surprise, struggles into the red-blue matchup. But if you put a multi-quester down on turn 1, especially on the play, I think it helps you out immensely in that matchup.
Yeah, and I mean, you shouldn't be really concerned about the person putting cards into their hand when you're playing this deck, because if you see them start putting, scary stuff into their hand, you have wheel usually in that deck as well, right? You can just make them discard it.
Right.
And on the other hand, if you're playing against like Ruby, Sapphire, they're playing a lot of songs and stuff in that deck, right? They top deck and be prepared on that. Well, they don't get it. Now it goes to the very bottom of the deck. And with no shuffle effects in that style of deck, it's on the bottom of the deck forever,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah, if you
yeah,
hit it, you
Steel
know it's
Song,
gone. And
Naveen is super cool, like you said. Yeah, 4-drop, you're going to be able to drop them and immediately sing 6-cost song. So that's,
pretty much
and I
any
think,
song you play in the deck.
yeah, and that's the same as basically playing it with your aerial, because you play your aerial on turn 3 and sing the song on turn 4. Instead, you get another body on the board that quests for 2, and you still get to sing your song, and you still have your aerial open to do more stuff too.
Right. So like
So that's kind
imagine,
of even crazy. You could double wheel.
yeah, it's like double wheel, or if, especially like in an aggro matchup, if you have swords in your hand, you can sing the swords with your aerial, play your Naveen. If you have the wheel, then Naveen plays the wheel, right? Like being able to play swords and wheel on turn 4 in the same deck is just crazy.
Yeah, S tier all day long for me. There's no question there. That honestly might even be the best deck in the format. I think it's going to be a strong contender for sure.
The next one is Amethyst Emerald. This is a deck that I've always been very big on, especially last format. I just think if you hit that Merfolk Flynn 1-2, it just puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, because they got to have the songs to remove it or the actions. 'Cause if they're challenging into them, they're losing their hand then, and like you just use your tempo cards then, and I feel like you control the matchup really well. For me, it's probably kind of like Amethyst Steel and Amber Emerald, where I think those 3 decks are really in that fighting to prove they're in the top tier this format, but are they in the top tier this format?
So I'm thinking A tier for that style of deck myself. I think it definitely gets wins. I think it's going to really struggle in a best of 2 format in any sort of tournament setting. I think it's going to end up splitting a lot, probably 90% of the time it's going to end up splitting, because you're going to have to hit that aggro curve and just hope that your opponent doesn't hit their answers. And we got to remember, like, all these other decks are getting support, being able to, like we just said about, like Amber Steel songs, right? Being able to hit those extra grab your swords and stuff off just playing characters. I think A tier is probably where Amethyst Emerald ends up. I don't think it's going to get to S tier at all.
I think that's really fair. So the next one, how do you feel? We kind of did Emerald Steel Bucky list discard, but what about like Emerald Steel, but more focused around like Ursula and the songs, and maybe even the new Robin Hood card? Less on the discard effects, probably no Prince John's, but more just almost like a green song, if you will, kind of deck.
I think that's going to be the only way you're going to be able to play those colors together like that. I think it's the only viable option left. I mean, Ursula is still a great card. Strength of the Raging Fire, Let the Storm Rage On, like those are all great songs. I think I think if you're playing Emerald Steel, it's going to have to be a song style deck. Into something and there's some cool control cards they got too, right? They have the You're Welcome song, right? That you can use on your own stuff as well to draw extra cards if you need to, or you can get rid of your opponent's stuff.
Right, and it's like if you don't need the card either, it's still inkable, so it's not even one of those uninkable cards where it's like, is it really good enough for the deck? You can ink it if you need to.
I think B tier is probably where it's going to go, and I really hope I'm proved wrong by that. But if I had to look at it right now, I look at everything else where we have everything, I think that does end up in B tier.
See, and that, how I just kind of mentioned a little bit in the beginning that we had really slight differences when we sent each other our lists. Like, I mean, 90% of it's probably the same. Where you had the Ruby Fasa as like bottom of A tier. I had that as like the top of B tier, and I had this deck as my bottom of A tier. But I mean, they're both like, which one's gonna prove itself, I guess, is how the format's gonna come out. Or are people just gonna say I'm done playing with Emerald Steel now and I'm gonna go on to all these other decks, and then it falls into the middle of B tier or heaven forbid lower.
And it's really what's gonna identify it is what your local metas are too, right? You have a much different
Definitely.
meta than I have, so decks that perform well here might not perform as well for you. So the fact that we're so close on so many of these decks and opinions is, I mean, at least it shows we're on the right track, I think.
Right. So the next one, admittedly, I'm not super familiar with it. I mean, I watched or looked at the list and did do a video talking about it and everything. It took first in a set championship, and that was Amber Sapphire Heroes. And I think it's a little less aggressive, but you can play a hero style deck with Steel and Sapphire as well, because it's the Sapphire Ana that really rolls the engine, and Steel or Amber kind of help the deck work. I I have a hard time believing it was more than just a good pilot in the right day. Like we said, for me, it's a C tier and just kind of proves that C tier decks can win events, especially like set championships. I don't know the deck well enough, I guess, to try to put it higher, but for me, that's where I would put it.
So I tried to build that deck. I actually have it sitting beside me right now. And I don't think I'm a terrible player by any means, but I feel like that is a terrible deck. And I know I want to set championship somewhere, and I'd really like to know what other players were playing at that event to make it accurate. And like you said, you could just get all the right matchups and the right draws, but for me, it's a C tier deck. I could not make it work. I didn't think it had answers. I didn't think it was fast enough. I thought it was way too telegraphed of a setup, and it just gave people opportunities to draw into or search for answers. So for me, it's a C tier deck for sure. I'd love to see it higher. I don't think it got any support in set 5.
What about Jafar Wheel? So this is the Amethyst Steel version of Jafar.
Yeah, and always an interesting deck. I mean, I have one Jafar. I'd love to get, if I had more, I'd probably try it. I don't think it's interesting, right? Because Pete could change that deck. That deck came out super strong, you remember? The last set or whatever, people were playing it a lot, and that was kind of the end-all, be-all, they thought.
Right, but it's like if they disrupt your shift lines, like what do you do? But like you said with Pete, now you can come back with Pete on turn 4 before they answer your shift line and turn off their actions. That way you hit your Jafar shift on 5.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about a different Jafar deck towards the end here. I don't think Jafar Wheel is going to be that good. I don't see enough support for it. I could be wrong. Pete could change a lot of decks.
Definitely.
On both sides, right? It could, and I keep thinking about how Pete's going to help decks, but I keep forgetting about how Pete is going to disrupt other decks. Like as a Ruby Amethyst player, we think that deck's so strong and we're playing it, and then somebody drops a Pete, and then they bounce their Pete, and we're sitting there with, be prepared and everything in hand, and even friends on the other side, and we just can't play our cards to progress our game.
Like you said, when you bounce it, it's coming right back. So it's like, it's not even, I have to wait a turn. It's how many turns do I have to wait before I can even use these cards?
Yeah, before I can just play the game. So, I mean, it's going to be cards like that we might see decks drop that we thought were going to be way better just because Pete disrupts that. So, Jafar Wheel, I'm going to say B tier for me. I think it'll be better than these C tier decks that we have in there. I don't know if it's going to be able to compete with aggro and removal of the A tier decks. I could be wrong, but I think B tier for me.
So say I'm a little biased with the decks. It's one that I've been working on for a set and a half now. I want to put it at the
S tier, right? Top of S tier.
I was gonna say bottom of A tier, but I want to see it work. I think it needs to prove itself though, because because I really like to. I mean, it kind of takes away like from all the just straight up opinions on these, but I like to see decks prove that they either drop or move up. So I'm gonna be a little biased and for mine probably say back of A tier, but I do want to see it prove itself. Like in 2 weeks, I might say, yeah, this is a B tier deck. Um, like
I'd be okay with it hanging out at the bottom of A tier for now and see what happens. I mean, I expect some of these are going to move for sure. We should really revisit this in about a month or month and a half and kind of
where everything shakes out.
see if we were totally wrong or what.
Right, just pull up the same tier list and it's like shuffle them around as needed.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be A tier. I mean, if you can get it off, if Pete can help protect your lines there, and I'm just thinking about where you're at ink-wise, if you're going to have enough to play out your protection with the Pete. And you're going to have the ability, I guess, in that color as well to bounce your Pete, right? You could just play, maybe not the whole bounce package, but you could just play 4 snakes.
Right, just
right?
to
Just
get your use
just to
out
pair
of it.
with your Petes. Yeah. So maybe A tier.
We wouldn't be able to do a tier list without talking about the color that just won the most recent challenge, red blue. We've kind of talked about some of the blue tools and the red tools, what like from the Chichas to Tipo to some of the Ruby cards. Is this still a top tier deck?
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's still an S tier deck. I don't think every other deck has got enough tools to deal with it. Like we've got the Petes and stuff out there, and even the new blue Bell, right? That gives everything ward for a turn. That kind of does the same thing a little bit. I think those cards, like the Bell, could even help out Ruby Sapphire with the right lines as well. Right? When they get all their ink out, playing a Tamatoa and then playing a Bell to give it ward for a turn. So I think Ruby Sapphire is still going to be S tier deck.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not even that I just wanted to prove that it's going to be worse. I don't see the deck dropping at all. It's going to be fighting, in my opinion, for one of the top 3 spots again. I just think the deck's too good, and we didn't get enough tools to knock it off that pedestal.
Yeah, I think we could even play it with no changes, and it would still win games.
Definitely. So the next one, I guess there's 2 ways that you could kind of go with the Amber and Ruby. Whether you're using like Naveen and the songs, or weren't you saying something too like with the princesses and queens, kind of with the Amber Ruby deck? Was that?
Yeah, I looked at that, and there's definitely options there as well. There's also options with the Robin Hood as well, singing your songs. I don't think Amber Ruby songs is going to be the right fit. Like I think if you're playing those colors, you have to play Mufasa. So I haven't seen a list anyway that I think is in any way competitive.
Would you say C
not with
or
songs?
would you keep
I
it
would say
in the
C or yeah, I think maybe C for that.
My locals, the one lady was playing it, and it felt like the deck needed just something. So I guess for me, I'll say that maybe Naveen is that thing and put it at the back of B tier, but I got to see some results from it. Otherwise, it might kind of fall back down. Because last format, I actually hyped up Amber Ruby songs quite a bit and said it was like gonna be that B tier deck definitely, and it just kind of disappeared, and I never saw it again. So I'm gonna give it one more chance.
What kind of songs? What kind of songs is it even singing that are?
Well, especially now, like with B King, you don't have to just play it on 4. Being able to hit your Naveen to play it, or there's that new Amber
I guess
song,
Ariel can sing it on 4 as well.
And like Ariel being able to search out Be Prepared, well not search, but hit Be Prepared is something. But it feels like this is going to be one of the casualties of Pete, how we had mentioned a little bit, where it's not just how can I add this to my deck, it's how is it going to hurt my deck. So I'll give it one more format at the back of B tier, but I need to see some results. Otherwise, next time around, unless I get crazy support, for me, it's definitely going to be joining down in that C tier.
I think it really needed a stronger shift line, like something crazy, like something like we saw Steel get the Robin Hoods right a set ago or 2 sets ago. Like I think it needs a big blockbuster shift line for that to be relevant.
So while we talk about Robin Hood, the next image has him. What about Ruby Steel?
I think that might be a sneaky deck. I think that might be a deck that people aren't really thinking about right now, and that Robin Hood. I mean, yeah, I know it gets brawled and Medusa and all that stuff, but maybe with Bucky not being a thing, people think Diablo isn't going to be a thing. Maybe they don't play as much removal for the one drops. Could be wrong. Maybe they leave that in for Daisy Duck, but yeah, that Robin Hood, that's an interesting card. And then the steel removal. You think about it, like those are your top two colors for removal in the game,
Right.
and
It's
you're playing them both.
definitely. I think it just kind of lacks in the draw power range. I was almost gonna play this when I brought the blue Bucky deck instead, but then I actually had one of my Patreons reach out to me, and he's like, "Oh, I played your exact list and got second place at my set championships," and I'm like,
Oh
"No way,
yeah.
that is sweet." I was like, "Did you play it like card for card?" And he said, "Yeah." I was like, "Cause me personally, I did the list with Fortispheres because that's what I own. If I had Beast Tragic Heroes, I'd 100% swap the Fortisphere out for the Tragic Hero. Although the second effect of the Fortisphere actually came up kind of a lot, like sneakily. I didn't put it in there for that, but you banish it and like you make your Robin Hood a bodyguard, and then they have to swing into the 6 willpower, and you protect your board that way. Um, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a sneaky deck. I have to look at how I'm gonna update it for the new format, but like you said, I think it could surprise people. I think.
I think it has draw power. I think it has the wheel if you want to go that route. That new dot card we talked about that maybe we didn't think had a home anywhere. Maybe that's where it has a home, right? When you're
Sure.
running on empty and you're in top deck mode, which we
Yeah,
see
you're
Ruby decks do a lot.
yeah you're playing all your big threats, and you just drop a card where, because you don't have to discard to draw two. If you have no hand, you just draw 2 cards. So it's
Yeah. So I mean, then that's basically a friends on the other side, but for two at
right,
that
and
point, right?
it
So
stays on the board too. It's like you get the presence from
yeah,
it. So
it's a
it's
body as well.
I guess for me, I'm gonna
Yeah,
put it
so
in the
that
B
might be a
tier still,
sleeper deck,
but
I think. I'll take B tier. I think B tier is being pretty generous.
yeah,
I'd like to see it go up higher, and
the
I think it has potential for sure.
definitely. Um, the next deck, I've seen a lot of hype for it too, and it was actually when was it November when really came into Lorcana. Amber Amethyst, Hyper Aggro. This is the very first deck I ever built. I'm super excited for it personally. I think it might be getting a little overhyped, but at the same time, I'm really excited for the deck. And one of the cards I haven't seen people really talk about, because everyone's talking about Daisy, and even
Hmm.
Library, because obviously like board wipes and removal is what really hurts you, and Castles kind of almost felt win more, but I'd still play it. But like Library being a turn sooner, and then you move your cards there, so when they hit you with that removal, at least your cards replace themselves. But for me,
Yeah.
the card when I was testing this out recently, the 4 cost Sven has actually been putting in a lot of work. He quests for 2, but he also re-readies one of your earlier characters and just protects them, almost kind of like a bodyguard.
Okay. Yeah, and he quests for two himself, hey? So
Yeah, so it's like you
when you play
guarantee
this
yourself
character,
4 or 5 lore next turn unless they have like an actual removal card, because they're not going to challenge your other card at that point. So
yeah, I think the hyper aggro has been a really good deck. It just needed tools to deal with certain things, and the Daisy, obviously, that's just another one drop quester that quests for two.
yeah, so now they have 12 of
I
them.
Yeah, and I think what's really going to help that deck a lot, and I know you didn't really like it when we talked about the Ruby Amethyst, but that gathering knowledge and wisdom, that gain two lore, I think that card is really that card's going to win games for this, because so many times I see people get up to 17, 18
And
lore
just stall out.
and just stall out, and like, yes, you're hoping for that goat off the top to kind of win you the game, but having another 4 cards in your deck that you could also rip off the top and help win the game. I
Right.
think that Amethyst Chromacon, where each player draws a card, because you're playing hyper aggro and you're emptying your hand. I think you're playing that in the deck too. So yeah, I think that deck might be really good. I think if you're gonna play any sort of aggro matchup, that might be what you're playing.
Yeah.
I would put it in A tier for sure. Possibly S tier. I'd have to see how it matches up against the big boys, but
Yeah,
I think it's going to win games. I think it's going to win championships.
I think across the board it's A tier, but I think out of the A tier decks it might have, other than like Steel Song, the best matchups across the S tier. I just wonder how it's going to do versus all the A and B tier decks, where it might not handle them as well as some of the other A tier decks do. But I'm really excited for this deck personally. I also would put it in that A tier that with a lot of potential.
Yeah, A tier fighting for a spot up higher, I think.
And then our last deck to talk about, you kind of hinted at it earlier. We have another Jafar deck, and that's the Emerald Amethyst, the green Jafar, if you will.
I think that deck is so cool. I want to get more Jafars, and I think because, you know, last set we saw that card, that second star to the right that can, you know, sing together 10. The fact that Jafar and Ursula can double sing that together, draw
Yep.
you 10 cards and get you 10 lore. That gathering knowledge, there's so much more card draw in the game as well. Even that Amethyst Chromacron, if you start dropping 2 or 3 of those and wait, just don't even use them, just wait till you got the Jafar out. Start drawing a card and gaining lore just by tapping it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like
I'm
even double singing friends for 4 is like really strong.
yeah, and I've wanted to see somebody make that deck and do well with it. And I've got the Ursulas, and I might have to get the Jafars and try it. So I think that deck has so much potential, and I don't know why I don't see it anywhere. Because I don't think it's a C tier deck. Like, I think that is a high B tier deck. I think it could be an A tier deck as well. Like, I think it has the tools it needs to be to get there. Maybe it just needs a pilot or some dedication or something. But
Yeah, I know Jafar's was it is Alpha JBO maybe. He just started up a YouTube channel really dedicated to Jafar, so now like getting another full format with it where he's pushing it, I'm pretty excited to see like what the following comes up with, because like you said, I think it's just waiting for its time to shine, and I think it's right there.
yeah, and I mean, there's a new Finders Keepers card, which is probably garbage in every other deck except Jafar,
Right.
where it's 5 ink to draw 3 cards. Like, you know, yeah, there's so many options out there. I think that they could really be. Yeah, I'm gonna stand by that. I think top of B tier, and I think it could easily fight its way into A tier with the right pilot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So we all obviously could watch the screen and see exactly where you ranked. I think I only moved 4 different decks around out of 21, so 17 out of 21 we completely agreed on. But so I guess I just shifted around to kind of my thoughts, but I mean, this is all, I think, good information. There's a lot of decks here that are just very viable. The C tier might be kind of questionable, but I think every deck in B tier and up, just they all have a lot of potential, and that's why I love this game. I think that there's just so many options that you can play and explore and do well in the right setting with.
Yeah, and I kind of tell people, like, play what you like, right? Just because it's not the top of S tier doesn't mean you're not gonna win with it. Like, I've been playing Sapphire Steel now ever since Set Championships was done, and just with the tier 4 or the set 4 cards, and I've been really successful with it. I've been beating all the matchups, so it does get wins, and I get hyper aggro sometimes. They get wins out of nowhere on me where they just drop 3 Lilos and I just can't catch them.
Yeah, if you don't see
And
swords, that's pretty much just GG.
yeah, so play what you like. I think anything in S tier, A tier, or B tier, you're gonna get wins with it, and especially like you talked about having the top 8 now in Set Championships get the enchanted card, not just the top 4.
Yep.
I think you're going to see a lot less teams travel because it's not going to be as worth it for them. So I think you're going to see a lot more locals with maybe not the best deck in the format still winning those enchanted, still coming out having a good time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing for the game personally.
I think it's great.
I travel a little bit to play, not like crazy, but I also wasn't trying to get a whole bunch of them. Not that I'd be opposed to it, and not that I care. Like if you want to do it, to me that's fine. Go for it. But on the same hand, with them saying top 8 for the cards, I'm okay with that too, and I'm just having fun playing the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard arguments both ways, but I think it's great for the game. I think it's just great for the community to give more casual players the ability to win an enchanted card when maybe they haven't been able to pull one themselves out of a pack. So I think it was just a great change by Ravensburg, and I fully support that. I'm still going to go to the events because I still want that playmat. I got the championship playmat last time around, so that's kind of what I'm there for. And I can't wait. It's going to be an exciting set. We got what, 2 days? 3 days till it comes out?
Yeah, this Friday. So, but it was a lot of fun. Definitely appreciate you coming on, helping me out with this. Like I said, kind of just getting multiple opinions, I think, is always really nice. 'Cause people always on videos like this, and rightfully so, when I watch other people's videos, I have something to say in the comments that I disagree with. So I really appreciate you taking the time, though, to hop on. Also, Everett, make sure, I don't know if I said it earlier, I'll link his channel and everything. Go check him out and show him some support. But thank you for coming around.
I really appreciate it, man. It's been a blast.
And I guess with that, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe to both channels again, and take care.